Good morning, Pastor Cooper, Sister Cooper, and all the members of Mission Baptist Church. I think we have stayed out of studying the Sunday school lesson for a little while, and I am now convinced that it is time for us to get back into studying the Word. We might not be able to do it face to face, but at least we could get a session of the lesson each Sunday morning. And so we are going to begin today is Sunday, January 16th, 2022. The topic for our lesson this morning is justice and fairness. And it comes to us from the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 23, and we're reading from verse 1 to verse 12. The time of action is 1444 BC, and the place of action is Mount Sinai. Golden text is taken from Exodus 23, verse 2 to 3. It says, "Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to discipline after many to wrest judgment, neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause." The introduction to today's lesson says God requires justice and compassion. When we interact with others, we are to be honest, avoid showing favoritism, and treat our enemies fairly. By living this way, we will stand out in society. Imagine our society without any rules. Yes, we have failed to enforce many of our existing laws, but a system of law and justice is vital if we are to have order in the world. In this week's lesson, we are given a few simple principles of just living along with powerful motives that should encourage the fulfillment of these principles in our lives. The background to our lesson states that Moses had led Israel to Mount Sinai, where they would receive God's law. And that's in Exodus chapter 19 from verse 1 to 2. God then instituted the Mosaic covenant with Israel, declaring that they would be his people if they obeyed his law. And all the people agreed to do whatsoever the Lord commanded. That's in Exodus 19, verse 5 to 8. But before receiving the law, there had to be a period of spiritual preparation. Now, that's the period in which most of us fail. Spiritual preparation. Moses directed the people to sanctify or separate themselves from all sinful defilement. This inward purification was symbolized by the washing of their clothes. This is in Exodus 19, verse 10 to 11. On the third day, the people were to be prepared before the Lord would come down before the people on Mount Sinai. After receiving these instructions from the Lord, Moses went down from Mount Sinai to prepare the people to hear the word of the Lord. Now, we don't have to guess what happened. Then the Lord called Moses back to the top of the mountain. And of course, we know the story of what happened when Moses went down and everybody was worshiping false gods and doing whatever they felt like because they could not go through this period of preparation. Let's look at the first verse of our lesson for this morning. Exodus 23 from verse 1 to 3. It says, "Be a faithful witness." This verse says, "Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness." The word raise a false report refers to listening to a lie and spreading it. The phrase, "put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness," means that we are not to join others in spreading false reports or lies. Making up or spreading false report was strictly forbidden by God. Now, today there is a lot of that, and Facebook, WhatsApp, and all of these media, they are prime source for persons to spread false reports. Verse 2, "Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment." This command forbids following a crowd to do wrong. The word decline here means to lean toward. So the phrase, Neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. Means that we are not to pervert justice by taking sides with the crowd or with the majority. The third verse, verse 3, it says, be blind to social classes. Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. The word countenance here means approval or support. So the command here is not to support or show favoritism to not the poor, not the rich. If the poor is wrong, the poor is wrong. If the rich is wrong, the rich is wrong. We might sympathize with the poor man who steals food to feed his family, but he is just as guilty of stealing as a rich thief. The law can't have a double standard for rich and poor. We must always be sensitive and compassionate to the needs of the poor, but sin is sin. Our second point, demonstrating compassion in everyday conduct. Exodus 23, verse 4 and 5. A compassion in returning property. Exodus 23, verse 4. This verse says, if thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him. Now, notice the words there. If thou meet thine enemy, somebody who we do not love, somebody who we do not care about, somebody who we really don't want to see. But if we see something for that person and it seems to be going astray, it is for us as children of God to do what? Do the right thing. Be compassionate. Now, compassion is not a very prevalent thing in today's society. We forget that God said, love those who hate you. We believe in revenge. We believe in doing to you just what you have done to me. But God is reminding us this morning that we do not have that right. As part of his Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5:44, Jesus said, but I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. How many of us can do that this morning? It says, I say unto you, love your enemies. We have to ask God. We have to really pray to God this morning for that heart to love our enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. Now, I know that we'll say that's not very easy this morning. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. God is asking for us to prepare for that this morning, to do these things. Compassion when assisting in difficulties. Exodus 23, verse 5. Still dealing with one's enemies, in this verse, God said, if thou see the ass of him that hated thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him. The Israelites were also commanded not only to return lost property to enemy, but they were to help our Holy Ghost. Ask us about it this morning. We are to help our enemies. Thou shalt surely help with him. This means that the person who sees his enemy struggling to get his donkey up should help to release the animal from the weight of his burden. This would demonstrate compassion for both the animal and its owner. It would also help to erase any bad feeling the other man has toward him. Demonstrating integrity in human relationship is verse 6 through 9 of chapter 23. In these verses, the principle of justice found in them can be applied to all our personal relationships, but they have special application for those who have been given duties in the government, whether the government of the world or the government of the church. It has special responsibility. We have special responsibility. Integrity in upholding the needy. This verse says, thou shalt not wrest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. The word wrest here means to pervert. This verse commands that in hearing a dispute involving a poor as against a rich person, the judge must not be biased against who it is. There is no favorite in the house of God. There is no favorite in the kingdom of God. There is no favorite in the world as far as God is concerned. Each man is equal. It's easy for local officials to identify themselves with others of the same social class and take sides. They realize that the poor don't have the means to retaliate if they rule against them, nor can they reward the official if they rule in favor of the poor. Integrity when supporting the innocent. This verse says, "Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked." God will not justify the wicked. And that is why it is for us to allow God to do his work and do not try to do that part of the work for him by us trying to reward the wicked for his wickedness. Allow God to reward the wicked, and we are to love them. We are to do good to them that hate us. And in doing good to them that hate us, we are going to allow God to do his work. The phrase, "and the innocent and righteous slay thou not," is a reference to condemning someone to death after being unjustly sentenced. "For I will not justify the wicked." The word justify here means not to declare someone not guilty. God judges perfectly, and he won't allow the wicked to escape justice, no matter what man's decision may be. God will not allow the wicked to escape justice. God is a God of righteousness. God is a God of justice, and so the wicked will not escape justice. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourself, but instead give thou not place unto wrath, for it is written, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord." And that is Romans chapter 12, verse 19. Dearly beloved, do not avenge yourself. Do not beat up yourself. Do not overpower yourself with the stress and strain of the wicked, but allow God to do his work. Integrity when refusing bribes. Exodus chapter 23, verse 8. This verse says, "And thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blinded the wise and perverted the words of righteousness." Verse 23, verse 9. Integrity. This verse says also, "Thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for he know the heart of a stranger," meaning God knows the heart of a stranger. "Seeing he was a stranger in the land of Egypt." Do not oppress a stranger. God knows the heart of a stranger. The Gentiles or strangers in Canaan had no inherited rights, but they were to be treated with hospitality and fairness. This is in Exodus 22, verse 21. Strangers in Israel were to be treated fairly, whether it's in court, whether it's on the street, wherever they are. God was asking that they be treated fairly. The Israelites were also commanded to love strangers. As children of God, it is our duty to love everyone, whether it be one of us or it's not one of us. It is for us to love. In fact, Jesus summed up all of God's law regarding relationship, whether in court, in our private lives, when he said, "And as he would that men should do to you, do he also to them likewise." Simply put, Jesus was saying to treat folks the way we want to be treated, and this is the hallmark of a Christian. A Christian will love. A Christian will treat others the way they would want to be treated, regardless or in spite of how the person is treating them. This verse says, verse 10 through 11, this verse says, and I'm at verse 10, "And 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in the fruits thereof." Here the Lord turned his attention to the institution of the sabbatical year, saying, 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in fruits thereof. Every seventh year was a sabbatical year, a year in which no planting or reaping of the land could take place, as we shall see in the next verse. Verse 11, this verse says, "But on the seventh year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard." Now God gives one instruction for keeping or honoring the seventh year. Then the Lord said, the land was to rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat. The poor of thy people may eat. This indicates that the Israelites should observe that sabbatical year. That sabbatical year which God requires us to give back. It's simply saying, let us give back. This is a year after God has been blessing me for 6 years. I have been reaping. I have been blessed. I have been prosperous. Then it is time for me to give back something. It's like saying, coming to church on a Sunday morning. After 6 days out there, I'm coming to church today, and it is time for me to give back from the blessing that God has blessed me with. And so the passage this morning is reminding us that there are some instructions that we must follow as children of God, as Christians. We are to treat others the way that we expect to be treated. We are to love others. And yes, we are to give back to God. God's instructions are clear. As his people, we are expected to practice truth, justice, and mercy. In order to practice justice, not only must we avoid doing wrong, we must also show compassion to those who really need it. This lesson, and I just want to stop there, compassion to those who really need it. Not compassion to those who have up in abundance and trying to gather some more, but compassion to those who really need it. This lesson taken from Israel's law teaches us some wonderful principles for righteousness or just living. Impartiality in whatever sphere of life it is not right. Compassion in our daily conduct and integrity in all human relationship is absolutely important. Since these principles are part of the very nature of God, they are repeated for us in the New Testament in some form or another, but they mean the same in the Old Testament. We must please God. As children of God, we must practice, we must do the things that pleases God. Sometimes it's going to seem not so pleasant, but we have to be joyful in doing it because we are pleasing God. We are working for God. We are following the principles of God. And if we want him to do his work, then we have to leave God's work alone. We cannot try to do what God is supposed to do. We need to do our part by doing what God commands us to do. Just a reminder, the topic of the lesson this morning is justice and fairness. And our golden text this morning is from Exodus chapter 23, verse 2 to 3. The lesson for this morning is Exodus 23, 1 to 12. We are to go back and look at what God is saying to us this morning through our Sunday school. Thank you very much for listening to this lesson.